Hi friends, Chris Van Dusen here. I decided you didn't need to see my big fat head every time, so I'm just going to get right to the drawing. Yesterday we drew D, Mr. Magee's dog, and today I promised I would try to draw Mr. Magee. This, by the way, was my very first book, if you didn't know that, and it started the whole thing with all these pictures. This was the first book. It came out 20 years ago this year. And in case you didn't know, also, I always hide Mr. Magee in all my books somewhere. So, all right, let's get right to it, shall we? All right, so we're going to start with a piece of paper. And we're going to start with a simple sort of oval shape that's a little bit narrower on the bottom. So I'm going to start with a shape that looks kind of like this. Like that. And you can continue it right up around like that. Now I'm drawing lightly at first, just like we do on all the drawings, because later I can come back in, and once I get the lines just right, then I can darken those up. All right, so this is going to be the shape of Mr. Magee's head. Now let's start, let's see, maybe we'll do like sometimes people do this if they draw faces. They'll sort of put this sort of cross, and again we're going to have Mr. Magee sort of like we did D, we're going to have Mr. Magee looking off to the right. So if we do a slightly curved cross like that, that will indicate where the eyes and the nose are going to be. And you can do that if you want, you don't have to. But this will help me figure out where the nose is. Now I'm going to do this, he has kind of a long nose, and it's a very simple nose, and it looks just kind of like this. It's kind of like the letter L backwards. So if you draw that in like that, and then I always put this little V-shaped shadow underneath his nose. Something like that. All right. Now, Mr. Magee does wear glasses. He wears the same kind of glasses my brothers used to wear when I was a kid. I have 4 brothers, and 2 of my older brothers had to wear glasses. And so the glasses are black on top. Here, I'll show you in the book. See how they're black on top, and they sort of fade to light, sort of clear on the bottom. So we'll do our best to do that. So we're going to start with that little shape that we did like when we drew Eugenia, that little shape that goes over the nose. That's the nose piece. Now we're going to take a line that goes like this, and we're going to come right out a little bit past the side of Mr. Magee's head. Okay? Now let's do the same thing over here, and we're just going to go right across over here out about there. We want them to sort of match up the same. We want this size and this size to be about the same. All right? Now this side is going to tuck right around the edge of his nose, and we're going to curve right, we're going to curve right around to here, and we're going to flare out a little bit and continue it like that. So that will be the outside of his glasses. Now see, I kind of messed up there a little bit, so you can just take your eraser and you can change things around. By the way, one of the things that's the hardest for me to do, and I wonder if this is true with other authors and illustrators, it's really hard for me to get the character to look the same throughout the book. And it's just sort of natural that the character should also change over the years too. So the way I drew Mr. Magee way back 20 years ago, it's not necessarily the way I'm going to draw it now. So, so it may look a little different from the first book and look more like the Learning to Ski book, which came out in, let's see, that came out in 2010. All right. So what I've done now is I've just drawn another smaller circle within the glasses, and then let's finish up this other side. So we're going to start here. We're going to do a line that goes down around, and I'll start over here and curve it right around like that. So that'll be the bottom edge of his glasses. And then we'll flare it out a little bit here and continue up there. And then when you're ready, do that inner line that's just the same. It sort of follows the same line as the inside, and it's just a little bit smaller, so that indicates his glasses. Now see, I've already made a mistake because this side is smaller than this side. So instead of making this larger, I think I'm going to actually make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to go like this and bring this up a little bit like this. See, I told you, I make mistakes too. Everybody makes mistakes. Even the finest illustrators in the world are going to make mistakes. And when I'm sketching out a book, I always have to do it several times to get the sketch just right. Okay, that looks a little better. It's not perfect, but still, it's better. Now, let's just continue this line over just over there because it kind of fades into his hair, but we'll do that in just a bit. Now let's figure out where his mouth is going to be. And Mr. Magee's a happy guy, so we're going to make him with a big smile on his face. And a smile is just simply a curved line that goes like this. And then we're going to have his mouth open, so he's smiling with showing his teeth, and it curves around like that. All right? Now, if you want, if these lines are bothering you, you can get rid of them if you want. And so I'm going to get rid of mine now because I've figured out where things are going to be. So I'm going to finish that. If you drew those in, you might want to get rid of them now. It's totally up to you. There. Now it's a little bit easier to see. Let's get back to the mouth. We're going to indicate his top lip, which is just a little thin line above that line we just drew. And his bottom lip, which we'll bring in like this, and it'll be like this. He does look pretty happy, doesn't he? And then just like when we were drawing Mr. Watson, we're going to draw his top teeth like this. Only this time we're actually going to indicate some of the teeth. So we'll put some little marks where his teeth are, right? We can also do this. We can darken up below the teeth, and that sort of shows the inside of his mouth there. All right. Now let's do his eyes, and we'll come back and we'll do his hat and his hair and his ears and his neck later. But let's do his eyes. His eyes are fairly wide apart. Here, we'll go back again to the book. You can see they're fairly wide apart. So we're just going to draw a circle about here. And we're going to draw a circle about here. Right? And then we will have him looking off to the side too, like maybe he sees the whales in the distance. Oh, and he's watching them have a feast for breakfast. All right. Now, let's see. Let's do his eyebrows. His eyebrows are very small. They're little shapes that look like this. Apparently, all the eyebrows I draw look kind of like this. Even Mercy Watson's eyebrows look like that. And then we will come back and we will do his hair, which is just a curved line that sort of makes a very, what kind of shape would you call that? Kind of a spear kind of shape, but it's going to be like that. And right below that, his ears are small and they're usually pretty low on his head, so they're going to look something like this. Just simple, curved little cartoon ears. And you can put the other one over here, just sticking out a little bit if you want. Now see, I can come back and I can adjust some of these lines. Make sure this is all lined up perfectly. All right. Okay. Now let's do his hat. Now Mr. Magee always wears this little pork pie hat that looks something like that. It's a very tiny little hat. It's kind of a little cartoon hat. And just like when we were drawing Mr. Watson, we are going to do a line that sort of curves across his head like this. Slightly curved up like that, right? Maybe you can go a little bit over, but not as far as we did when we drew Mr. Watson. So we're going to go like that. Now back over here, we'll do a little underside like that. We can darken that in if you want. And then we're going to do a line that goes up like that. Over here, we can show the underside too. We can do a little triangle, dark triangle underneath there. And it comes out to this point. Now let's go back to this side for a second. Where we drew this line up, we're going to draw a line that goes all the way across and kind of goes down into this point, kind of the brim of his hat. So this is what it looks like. It's going to look like this. Right? See, I think I messed up again. I think this is too far out. So I'm going to bring that in a little bit. I'm making you guys work on this one, huh? Because I'm changing it up as we go. All right, so now we got his forehead going in. Now, about where his forehead would come out, and disregard this line. In fact, let's get rid of that right now, because we don't need that anymore. And where his forehead comes in, we're going to draw the hat coming up like this at an angle. We'll go back here. Where his head comes up, we'll draw the back of his hat coming up here. And the top of the hat is kind of like this curvy line that looks like this. Just like that. Pretty simple. And then there's a hat band that is pretty wide. It goes like that. It doesn't have that crimp like Mr. Watson's did. And he always has sort of a plaid hat band, so you can put some plaid lines in there if you want. This is kind of what it looks like. And then I'm going to put a little cross hatching across there because it's darker than the rest of his hat. All right, now I'm going to darken some of the lines as you go. Maybe we'll show his hair coming down. His hair is just like a little curved line that comes down, indicates his hair under the thing. We can put a little shadow under the hat. Like I said, we can darken some of these lines. We can darken up his hair. And then we can darken the top part of his glasses too. Remember, the glasses are black on top, solid black, and they kind of fade like that. So you can kind of do something like where you fill it in on the top and just kind of fade it off somewhere like that. You could just sort of do whatever you want there. I'm going to do it over here too. In this part of his glasses, I'll fill up the top, and then we will fade it off as it comes down. All right. I think I got his nose a little bit too pointy, so I'm going to kind of correct that a little bit, darken that up. His ears, again, have those sort of sideways V's in them to indicate where the crease of his ears are. We can indicate a little bit of hair over on this side of his head, too. And then if we want to, we can add a little bit of cross-hatching to his cheeks. And if you have a smudgeable pencil, remember we talked about smudgeable pencils? Let's see if it works. Oh, yep. See, it just sort of indicates a little bit of a cheek color there. And I usually darken up the end of his nose, too, a little bit. Then if you want to get really cool, you can do like a little highlight on his nose. Look something like that. Oops, see, now that line doesn't look very good on the end, so I'm going to change that around. All right, so that's basically Mr. Magee, but we do have to add his body. I'm going to darken up around his eyes a little bit because, remember, his eyes are underneath his glasses, so there will be a little bit of a shadow underneath his glasses. So it'll be a little darker under there, but it'll be something like that. And then let's come down here, and we're going to just draw his neck, which is very simple, just like that. We're going to draw a little shadow under his chin, so it looks like it's connected there. And then down here, we're going to do another very shallow V. It looks like that. We're going to continue these lines down on the side. Do another, this one actually is going to kind of look like a W. We're going to go like this, boot, and then back down and boot over. We'll put some little lines in his collar. It'll look like that. Let's tuck a little button right up top and add like a little placard to his shirt that looks like this, a little rectangle coming down. And let's see, Mr. Magee has 3 buttons, so 1, 2, 3, just like that. And then the last thing we'll do is we'll add his shoulders, which we can just kind of slope off any angle you want, something like that. All right, so that's basically Mr. Magee. I'm going to just kind of work on some of these lines here. Some of these lines I don't think I got quite right. Probably yours looks better than mine, but I'm going to darken up some of these lines. And I think I got his ear a little bit too big over here, so I'll change that. But that is basically what Mr. Magee looks like. And we can darken up his shirt if we want. Awesome. Now, my wife, Lori, suggested that tomorrow we might want to try to draw one of my very favorite characters from the circus ship. And it's the first time ever I put a villain in one of my books, and his name is Mr. Pain. And so if you guys are up for it, let's try drawing Mr. Pain tomorrow. So let's say goodbye now to Mr. Magee and his little dog Dee, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Stay safe, have fun, and keep drawing.